Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the virtual breakfast sessions. I'm Larry Sashin, and today we have a very, very special coffee with Ed Flanagan. We've been affiliated with Ed for over 2 years, and I just thought it was time that people got to know them. So, Ed, why don't you say hello to the folks, and we'll start this thing going.
Thanks, Larry. Ed Flanagan. I'm a national partner with the ERA Group. The ERA Group is a global cost containment consultancy. We've been around for 32 years and we help our clients free up cash flow.
Okay. Fred, why don't you say hello to the folks?
Good morning. I'm Fred Clashman, editor and publisher, Total Food Service. Good morning. Looking forward to this.
Okay. And once again, I'm Larry Sashin and Ed Flanagan. Tell me a little bit about Ed Flanagan, what makes him tick, and why do you do what you do?
Well, the nice thing, Larry, we help clients find money that they don't have in their budget. A lot of our clients need to hire people, but they don't have the money. Some of our clients need to upgrade their software. Some of our clients are struggling on the bottom line. So in all those situations, we free up cash flow. We help them increase their EBITDA, and we ultimately help them have more value in their business.
Okay. So how did you get into this business?
Well, I'm a bean counter. I'm a CPA, and I spent my early career in public accounting, and then I got involved with home building. And back in 2009, the home building industry was struggling because of the mortgage crisis. So prior to that happening, somebody from the ERA Group came out to visit me and said, "Hey, can I look at your expenses and try to reduce your cost?" And I said, "Well, that's my job." And I kind of shoot them away. And then they came back 90 days later and said, "How's it going?" And I said, "Well, we made a good start, but then I got pulled over here, I got pulled over there." And the guy said, "Well, can I get a shot?" And I said, "Yeah, see what you can do." And within 90 days, he came back with savings of $250,000. So I saw exactly what they did, the process they went through. And then when our company didn't survive the financial crisis, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And here's my opportunity to get involved in sales. By the way, I hate salespeople, but I have a product or a service that people need. And I really enjoy going in and helping out organizations, make sure they're not overspending. And the nice thing is we're so good at what we do, 90% of the time we find savings. And 2/3 of the time, the savings come from the current supplier. So you don't have to switch in order to be successful with our process. We also work on a contingency basis, so there's no upfront cost. We're compensated by sharing in the savings.
Okay.
So let's look at business as a whole. Let's look outside of restaurant and food service for a second, and let's look at business as a whole. When you look at the opportunities, you just specifically talked about the relationship with suppliers. Does this mean that suppliers are inherently built to take advantage of their client community? What's to be read between the lines there?
Well, the thing is, Fred, let's say you're in the business and you're selling to your client. You're trying to get the best possible price that you can because you're focused on the bottom line. We have a lot of clients that, I had a situation where we had 3 different companies in an office building in Philadelphia, a law firm, an accounting firm, and an engineering firm, and they're all using WB Mason for their office supplies. And they all thought that they were getting a great price. When we looked at the data, none of them were getting a good price. So WB Mason's job was to guess the best possible price they can. Our job is to go in and say, "Hey, we've got benchmark data. We know what the best price is. So if you're not going to sharpen your pencil, we're going to go out to the competition and try to get the best deal for our client." So it's that intellectual property, Fred. It's knowing the market. And again, the suppliers, they're just trying to do what they're doing is trying to get the best possible price.
So basically what you're saying.
The moral of the story is no matter what the product or service is that you're purchasing, typically, whether vendor is well-meaning, well-intentioned or not, the bottom line is that there's still a comparative marketplace out there to shop, and most people simply do not have the time to do that.
Right. And the thing is, 10% of the time we don't find savings. We come back and say, "You know what? You're kicking butt. We can't help you out in this area." But it doesn't happen very often.
That's 10% of the time. That should be emphasized.
Yeah. And if that does happen, there's no cost. We're willing to work on that contingency basis.
Yeah, I'm more interested in the other 90 that you just referred to without saying it, right?
Yes.
You gave an example to Fred and myself a few days ago about a linen service. And this was a long-term contract. These were these guys' buddies. They've been doing business for so long. And, it's just like neighbors. Good fences make good neighbors. A good audit makes good supplier. Tell us about that one.
Yeah. So this was a sports club in New York City. They were using uniforms, linens, towels, and all that, had a big spend. And what happens is their supplier was increasing prices 4% over every year. After, 10 years, we come in and say, you know what, you're way over what the market is. So they came back and they provided, I think it was 67% saving. We went out and found 3 other suppliers and they came back not with 67, but in the 50%. And we went and presented the report to the client and they said, you know what, we don't want to deal with the incumbent anymore. They've been hitting us up with 4% and we want to go with somebody else who has better service and is more honest for what we're doing. And so we found 50% savings for them.
So talk a second about, you've mentioned you find. Let's talk about, because one thing you showed us is this is a pretty intricate process. In other words, if you think, oh yeah, I could do this on my own, or an intern could do this, etc. It's not so. I mean, it's a very extensive reporting system that you put together.
Yeah. See, the thing is, Fred, a lot of these contracts are 1-year contracts, 2-3-year contracts. So they go out and negotiate every year, every couple of years, and they're thinking, if prices don't go up, I did a good job. They don't realize that they could be 30% above the market because they don't have the benchmark to know what the best possible price is. And they don't know what questions to ask the supplier. Hey, is there opportunities to get rebates? Are there prebates out there? There's a lot of opportunities over and beyond pricing that they can negotiate if they knew what the opportunity was.
You mentioned a prebate?
Yeah, some of
What is
our
that?
suppliers will give you a prebate, an upfront rebate, if you commit to go with them for a long-term period.
So
that
kind of like these phone companies buying you out of your existing phone plan.
Exactly, but it's actually giving you back cash, but you got to commit to, using them for the next couple of years.
Right.
So what businesses is this good for, Fred, Ed? What businesses do you work with? And how big do they have to be to make any kind of sense to bring you in?
Yeah, so Larry, I get that question all the time. So we're not focused on headcount and we're not focused on the revenue. What we're focused on is how much are they spending in each category, because we average 20%. So the thing is, they need to spend enough to make it worthwhile, that if we find 20% and share it with the client, it makes sense. So typically they need to spend about $100,000 in each category to make it worthwhile.
And what kind of businesses do you deal with?
Well, we look at 50 different expense areas, so we deal with all the verticals. But our sweet spot is hospitality, manufacturing, education, and the big one is healthcare. There's a lot of savings in medical supplies, pharmaceuticals, durable medical equipment, and all those areas.
And talk about one thing that we've noticed in working with you is this isn't work you do yourself. You've got a team of specialists who focus on each one of these different areas. Talk about how that team of specialists has been put together.
Yeah, so that's correct, Larry. So in the different areas, I'll give you a couple examples. If we're looking to help a client in food service, the guy that we work with has a PhD in food science from Cornell University. If we're trying to help somebody out with their medical supplies, we have a specialist that spent 20 years at Cardinal Health running their supply chain. So in each of the 50 different expense areas we have specialists that grew up in the supplier industry. They have the knowledge of the industry, and the important thing is they have the benchmark. They know what good prices are, and they're able to talk with the supplier.
So what's the process?
So the first step of the process is to provide a baseline report. So in order for us to tell you we're saving you money, we have to establish where you're at today. So we need to get data and find out what it is you're buying or what services you're providing. And then we also need to find out what's important for as far as quality and service. So the thing is, we're looking to find savings, but it's not on the cheap. What we call it's savings that are as good or better value for the money. So once we get that data, we put together a baseline report, we play it back to the client, and we say, during the last 12 months, you spent $100,000. These are the 300 SKUs that you purchased. And here's what's important. You need deliveries 3 days a week before 10 o'clock at these locations. Did we get everything right? And we're basically playing back to them what we found. And in most cases, say that looks good. The next step is to go out to the market. In most cases, we'll provide the suppliers with an RFP. And the nice thing about the RFP is we already know what they bought last year. So we're able to give the supplier 12 months of activity. So we tell them that these are the 300 items that they bought last year. The total spend was $100,000. We don't tell them how much they spent on each individual item. And we also tell them what's important. And we say, hey, they need deliveries at this time of day at these locations. Can you make that work? And then they sharpen their pencil. They come back with responses to the RFP. We put together a summary report, which we call the options report. And that might say that the incumbent supplier wants to keep the business. They're offering 15%. We've got 2 or 3 other suppliers offering 20 to 30. 20% savings, and then we make a recommendation. We might say that we think you should go with supplier B, and here's why, but it's up to them to decide. Don't force them to switch. And then once they make that decision, we work with that supplier to make sure all the new prices are implemented in their system so that when our client starts buying or receiving the services, they get the correct price. And in order to verify that, we do an audit every month. So we get a summary report from the supplier and we go line by line. And we'll say, let's say it's office supplies. You were paying $40 for a box of paper. You're now paying $35. We saved you $5. You bought 100 boxes. We saved you $500. So we actually tell them what they save every month. And what happens on occasion is the supplier screws up and overcharges. Have you ever heard of that? So if that happens,
Screws up.
So if that happens, we slap the supplier on the wrist and say, you screwed up. You need to issue a credit back to the client. And then we follow up on the credit.
So let me ask you another question. Being a New Yorker, we're naturally skeptical. Okay. What's in it for you to choose one supplier over another?
Good question, Larry. The nice thing about our service is we have no financial interest in any of the suppliers. So we're totally neutral. So our goal is to get the best savings opportunity for the client. It might be from the current supplier or it might be from a new supplier. So what we do is we open up doors and give them options. And they like that because normally when they're dealing with a salesperson, the salesperson's saying, hey, get rid of your guy and bring me in. And in this case, we're not saying that. We're saying what's best for you.
Okay.
And I think the other thing that sort of sense in this is, in many cases, you act as a purchasing arm to be able to initiate a negotiation with a vendor who may not have been negotiated with in God knows how long. I mean, you stop the clock and say, okay, you've done a great job for these folks, but, we need to just check and make sure that given market conditions that this still makes sense.
Yeah, that's correct, Fred. I mean, a lot of time our clients don't have the time to negotiate every year. And again, if the contract comes up for renewal and prices haven't gone up, they're happy.
What about the other thing this goes sort of counter with is there are many restaurateurs in particular that have multiple restaurants that have purchasing agents and buying staff. They go to bid either on a weekly, monthly, some cases daily basis. Where does ER fit in that culture of an organized bidding process? Can it help oversee what's been going on?
Yeah, so the thing is, Fred, with a situation where there's multiple restaurants, a lot of time the person responsible for the P&L in each restaurant negotiates on their own. They're not using the strength of putting together a consolidated spend to go out to the market. And what we do is we try to negotiate with the broadline suppliers on a cost plus basis. So within the hospitality industry, there's like 8 different categories: meat and poultry, dry goods, produce. So we tell the suppliers, we want you to provide a contract to our client based on your cost plus a markup. And then during the period of the contract, you agree to price our clients your cost plus the markup. So what we do is we have audit rights. So every quarter, we'll ask the client, what would you like us to audit? And they might say, well, we did a lot of chicken breast, we did crab meat. So we'll give the list to the supplier and they have to give us their invoice on what they paid for the crab meat, apply the markup and make sure it was the right price to our client. And guess what, Fred? A lot of times it doesn't work out. So again, once they know you're looking and auditing, they won't try any of the hanky-panky.
Okay.
So red letter dates and times include football season for chicken wings, etc.
Yeah.
Hot dogs for July 4th at clubs, etc. I mean, there are certain dates that can be circled.
Right. And we've heard a lot of times that clients negotiate, a cost plus with audit rights. And then we talk to Cisco and US Food. We say, how often do people actually do the audit? And it's very 10 to 15%.
Yeah, interesting.
And the reason that being is
They're just too busy.
Busy.
The other
Okay.
thing, Larry, we had the fellows that does our specialty work in the food service. He met somebody that had worked all their career, both at Cisco and US Food. And he said, how do you guys go out and price? What kind of logic do you use? And the guy said, well, we have an algorithm and we have 2 types of clients. We have the one client that we send them a bill and they pay it. We have another client where we send them the bill and they raise hell. What's going on? Why is this going up? So the algorithm has the 2 clients, the easy client and the difficult client, and they price their products differently, lower for the difficult client than for the easy client.
you mentioned mentioned, a 65% savings, and then there's 10% of the people that save nothing. Okay. What is the realistic expectation that someone who contracts with you, the majority of the people, where is that wheelhouse in their savings?
So again, we've been in business for 32 years. We've done over 35,000 projects. A project would be food service or utilities or office supplies. And out of those 35,000 projects, we average 20% across the board. Sometimes as high as 40 and 50%, sometimes down to the low teens, but on average 20%.
No matter what the percent, whether it be 0 or 60, the exposure of the company out of their pocket is
0. Yeah. And the thing is, Fred, either, there's only going to be good things coming out of engaging us. Either we come back and say, hey, you're kicking butt, we can't help you out, or we're able to find some savings. And then the thing is, we stick around.
And at the same time, you get to put the vendor on notice that, from now on, you're going to pay attention.
Yeah. And we're going to audit you to make sure the prices stay what we contracted.
What's the impact then of tariffs on this whole process? What are you seeing?
Yeah. In certain expense areas, we're seeing that, tariffs are a big impact. I'm not sure how it's going to play out, but if we back up to like the COVID time, we found that there was a lot of situations where they were raising prices because COVID caused prices to go up. Well, when the economy stabilized, the suppliers that had raised their prices never lowered them, when things stabilized. So we're able to go back and say, hey, wait a second, your prices have gone up 18%. Things are stabilized. You need to get them back down. But the clients don't understand that they can ask for that. They're just running their business. They're not concerned with, the day-to-day operations on pricing.
So basically you're their bodyguard, you're their mouthpiece, you're their negotiator.
Yes.
Okay. Well, listen, it's come to that time in the show where we have to start wrapping things up. Listen, Ed, just give us that last little tidbit that people should remember when they leave this session.
I think the most important thing is, on all the invoices you're getting from your suppliers, make sure you audit them. Make sure they're the prices that you negotiated. Because if you don't audit, prices are going to start creeping up. And before you know it, you're going to be out of whack.
And the invoice is sort of become like their business plan. They wrote it in 1978 and they just let it run. It doesn't work. Well, listen, this has been a great show. Fred, any last comment?
Well, I think I have one last question, which is all we hear about now is AI. Can AI do this? Can AI do this work that you're providing? In other words, why do we need a human? The question's going to come up.
Well, again, Fred, can an AI negotiate as good as we can? Do they have the benchmark data? Do they understand the industry? Can they talk the talk? I'm not sure how things are going to come out with the AI.
Yeah. So it sounds like a tool more than an answer.
Yeah.
Let's not look 20 years in the future. So that's it. Ed, it has been a pleasure. You've left some information on people's lap that they should take care of. So once again, if you're looking to claw back some of that money that you've been spending on your invoices and your contract, call Ed Flanagan and the Era Group. They will take care of you very, very well. I only have 2 things left to say. Everybody, stay positive, test negative, and we'll see you next week. Bye now.